of theloganreport.com. And today I have Alexander Horat with me. He has two videos, or I should say channels. One is the Free American Press, and it's something that we're trying to encourage a lot of anyone to watch it, of course, but especially the millennials and younger. And then you also have the Morgan Millennial Minute, which you're working with me on to try to get more and more information to the millennials about what's really going on and how to proportion their savings going forward to weather the bumpy seas ahead. With that said, we had a little off video chatter, and one of the things I wrote about in I guess it's an editorial of about 2 months ago when I did a pretty deep dive on the start of this Ukraine situation. And I made the point in that editorial that the pandemic isn't over. I didn't go much beyond that. I just said, get ready for round two, and it will be worse than round one. So it's very vague and very general, but I meant every word of that. Well, now we've discussed, and the reason we're doing this interview today or this discussion is because of what's going on in China. So I want your take not only on what's going on in China, but what's your projection, what's your conjecture, what do you think is going to happen moving forward?
Well, what's going on in China? I'm just gonna share the screen to show you all what's happening. They basically locked down one of China's biggest cities over in China. So it's a city called Shanghai, and they're basically going into lockdown again, basically locking down their citizens. I guess suicide rates have really gone up, and people can't get food. So it's a really huge thing that's happening in China. And we saw, this whole COVID pandemic and everything that went on in the past, it seemed that China set the trends of what the United States eventually did, and at least the major cities. And here's a video right here just to show you what's going on over there. But we see basically there's all these people in hazmat suits. They're basically forcing people into their homes. And also, I think they're even beating up some people too in China. And it's just pretty crazy, I think. It's kind of a dystopian, future that they want for us, which is basically happening to us at present. And I'm really afraid, like you said, David, that, this could be lockdown 2.0, that we could go into lockdown here in the United States again. And there's already talks, I think, in New York City and in New York. I believe I heard something that they wanted to put the muzzles back on the school children. So we're already starting to see that happening. And I really think that they're probably going to go on a full, lockdown, basically attack on us, probably after the election. And probably how hard it's going to be is going to depend on the reaction of the people of the United States and the world also, whether we're going to take this or not. Because if we just fall over and be submissive again, they're definitely going to have lockdowns, for the whole country. But at the very least, they're probably going to try to do it in large cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco. What are your thoughts, David? Do you think that'll probably happen as well?
Yeah, I also, want to probe you a little deeper. First of all, this is conjecture, could be wrong. What are your thoughts on? First of all, we're seeing that from the mainstream news. We can, I wouldn't take it with a grain of salt. I think it's pretty accurate. It's really tough these days to determine unless you have boots on the ground and physically have three different people to verify whatever you're seeing. Even then, it's been green screened. I mean, I'm sorry to be so cynical, but that's the reality we're in. Having said that, I want your idea on what is going to make the next one palatable. And by that word palatable, I mean there's been a blowback on this mask thing. I mean, Candace Owens did this, what happened in the COVID-19 video right after the war broke out. It's like everybody forgot about it. No masks. So it's like, what? I mean, this thing was like the world killer. All of a sudden, it's gone almost. Now they're going to bring it back. So my question is, how are they going to bring it back? Are they going to say it's just the outbreak, it's another variant? Or, and I don't want to lead you too much because I have thoughts on this, it's going to be something different this time. And I keep thinking about that video I've watched 3 or 4 times with Kill Gates and his partner at the time, and talking about, he raises his glasses or something and says, the next one, he starts smirking, will be worse than this one. So, like, how does he know ahead of time that the, round 2.0 is going to be worse? So, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's definitely all part of their 2030 agenda. I was just reading an article about Klaus Schwab. He was the guy who said, "We'll own nothing and be happy," and he wrote a book, basically saying that the Apple watches and the internet. Basically, he thinks that could all be implanted into people, into their brains, and basically, microchips. So I think really what they're going to be wanting to do is a social credit system with the serum that they want to put into everybody. That's kind of my thought. They want to move us into a social credit system. You can't do this or that without having this pass. And it's basically already been unveiled in China. We saw what they're doing in China right now. So basically, their plan by 2030 is trying to make us, part of a technocracy, which is basically where it's feudalism with technology, pretty much.
Right.
It's where a few people control the keys of the internet, and they basically, tell you what to do. They push these buttons, and you're basically forced to do what they tell you to do. Kind of like with Mark Zuckerberg and the censorship on Facebook. He says, "Oh, you can't say this, you can't say that," and then he pushes some buttons and takes you off the internet. So it's really just part of global communism. I think they're going to try to basically, I think at least 50% of the population will do what they say, basically, no matter what at this point, unfortunately. So they're going to try to unveil these systems, in the big cities. And they're also going to probably come up with the cashless society as well, basically making their own Fed coin, basically, where you have to use that and you can't use paper dollars anymore. So they can track what you're buying and selling. And, it's also a great way to get ads and stuff because they know exactly what you're doing. So they can sell as well. And at the same time, they have complete control over your money now. They can freeze your bank account very quickly. We also saw what Justin Trudeau did to all the people, all the truckers in Canada. We saw how he actually took away the journalism credential for Rebel News, saying that they can't be journalists anymore. And he's basically trying to get rid of their rights to the free press. And we're seeing that in America. So I think they're going to try to do things more subtle this time, probably. But I think we're going to see lockdowns, in the major cities at least. And they're probably going to try to unveil some stuff with airplane travel. They're already unveiling some social credit systems with airplane travel. And basically, the way they want us to own nothing and be happy is because they're going to have machines doing a lot of the work. That's basically their plan, so they don't need us anymore, which is a really terrible thing. But that's kind of my thought on this. Is that kind of what you think, David, or is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'd like to add one more thing and then move on to gold. My thinking is, since we're getting this inundated with this H1N1 bird flu, bird flu, bird flu, killing chickens, killing chickens, killing chickens, eggs are going to cost more. I think that's may go into the next pandemic. In other words, the new one may be the bird flu or a combination of what they're already, we've already been through that has some crossover with the bird flu or whatever. I've recently seen a couple of articles that talk about if the H1N1 bird flu were to get to the human category, it could be a death rate as high as 50%. Now, you know me, Alex. I take almost everything from the mainstream and I cut it to zero and then work backwards from there. And maybe 10% of it's got some truth in it. Of course, as I said, I'm quite cynical at my age. Nonetheless, I think that could be kind of what they're projecting to us is that, well, the pandemic was so horrible, which it wasn't. It was over 99% rate that you would survive, and it probably would have been much higher if the medical interventions that were allowed were not in place, and the ones that were more effective were used. But I digress. So I think that could have part of it. But I'm going to leave it there because everything we said for the last 10 minutes of conjecture, I think it's really good that we had this because people get to think on their own and make up their own damn minds. Now, moving on to gold. Gold's, in my opinion, kind of performing maybe subpar, but close to what it should be under all these conditions with the war, the round two of the pandemic, what's going on with the food supply, what we constantly hear about the weather crisis. and everything else. I mean, it's a mumbo jumbo. There's not any good news anywhere at any time. Of course, there is, but we hardly ever hear it. We're going to gold. Let's talk about money. What do you think gold's performance is relative to what you think it should be doing at this point, and where do you think it's going to go, let's say, over the next few months? Question I
Well,
get all the time. I'll put it on you.
yeah, well, I think gold's really going up with silver because we're seeing, commodities rising across the board with this war with Russia and everything and talks of World War III. So I definitely think gold and silver are probably going to go up. In the next 2-3 months, silver could go to $30 an ounce, I would think. And I really do think gold and silver should be going up in relation to the dollar quite a bit. I think there's also some talk that Russia tied its ruble to gold in some way. I'm not exactly sure how they did it, but they did something to that effect, and that made their ruble stabilize somewhat because it was crashing really bad in a huge way. So I really think gold's going to go up. How much up it's going to go is unknown, I'd say, but they're definitely trying to keep the gold prices down and the silver prices down because we see how much oil has gone up as a commodity, in recent days. I think, less than a year, it went up to minus 30 a barrel. They're giving you a barrel of oil for $30, something crazy. It actually went negative, and now it's at $110 or something like that for oil per barrel. And at the same time, we see gold and silver is moving up, but it's not moving up, I think as quickly in relation to another commodity like oil. So I do think it's going to go up, is my thought.
Okay. Yeah. On the ruble, there was a tie for 5,000 rubles per gram of gold. And that was internal to the Russia only. And that's what they would pay their miners, basically what it boiled down to. And they said at the time, I think it was the finance minister, I'll use that terminology, finance minister, and he nixed it a while back. So it was only going to go through May anyway,
Oh,
initially, and they already cut it back to we're not doing it anymore. Why? I think, as you outlined, that the ruble gained more strength, I think, than he thought it might. I mean, at first it was on a ruble exchange to the USD. It was a discount to what the current gold price was. It quickly went to par or maybe slightly above. So they saw the effect that it had, at least psychologically, and basically decided at this point in time to back off. But I use the word yet. I think there is something because Zero Hedge did a very long article on the Russian take on the possibility of a new currency. It's a very interesting read. I don't have a photographic memory, although I wish I did. But it talked about basically a basket of commodities. In other words, a monetary system that was backed by real things. And it was a pretty long read. I read it all. I think that there is pushback to the Schwab Club. And many will say it's all orchestrated, it's all part of the grand theater, it's all just to divert you. The outcome's already determined, and you're just watching a play, and it's just, the actors on the stage. And I won't rule that out because I don't know. I would like to believe, though, that there is some pushback. And I know there's double and triple agents. So you can be a member of the club, supposedly, and really be in there for infiltration purposes only, not because once you're there, you're always there. So there's a lot of variables here that I don't know the answers to them, but we have to wait, watch, and see. And that speech that he gave about wanting to be commodity backed, basically, I thought made a lot of sense for we the people. So it's a death cult, in my view, looking to reset basically the parameters of how many of us get to eat and how many don't. That we have to be changed internally to mesh to their, as you said, technocratic algorithm with artificial intelligence. It's basically a feudal system with our lords above us and everyone else equal under the skin, where everything you think, do, and say, you're programmed, basically. So it's a fight. It's a real big fight. And tell me, last question, and I'll let you have the final words and thoughts. How many in your generation do you think are savvy to what's actually going on?
Well, I think there's quite a few, but then again, there's quite a few that aren't very savvy on what's going on. But I think a lot of people are waking up to the truth from my generation. watching YouTube videos and kind of doing their own research, because unfortunately at the public schools, at least, they didn't really teach them anything. But now that they can do a little exploring on their own, trying to find out the truth, there is quite a few people waking up. And I think people are waking up that, basically technocracy, where we own nothing and we're supposedly happy, is not a good thing. So I think there's a lot of people who are waking up to this, and because they want freedom, they don't want to be controlled by or robots. So I really think there's some pushback, and I think people are waking up, and we just need to continue to wake up more people from my generation and every generation, I think, so we can stand together and fight this.
Great. All right. How do we learn more about you and your two YouTube channels?
Well, you can check out the Morgan Millennial Minute on YouTube, and check out the interviews that I've done there. And you can also check out the Free American Press. And I also have a website called thefreeamericanpress.com. And on the Free American Press, I do videos and interviews. And you can always contact me there if you'd like.
So who would be your favorite? Who would you like to interview that you haven't interviewed yet so far?
Well, that's really hard to say. I've interviewed a lot of really good people, like you, and probably the person that I'm most grateful to have interviewed was my friend Jordan Maxwell, who just recently passed away. He was really a good person. But probably I would like to interview, these people who are trying to destroy, our country, and then just ask them, why are they doing this? Why are you basically letting communism, take over our country, and why are you destroying, the entire human race? And I would like to grill them on that and see what their responses would be. But I don't think those people would ever want to be interviewed by me.
But that is the question. Well, we'll leave it there. We'll visit again soon. Thank you for all that you're doing. I'm happy to support you in a small way, and carry on, my friend. You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you, David, and you have a good day.